Hi, fans of high-quality entertainment. I have been wanting to do this review for a few days. What I need to do is tell my whole George Harrison story, my thoughts on George Harrison. I might have said some of this in recent videos, but I just want to, in this one video, tell you my thoughts on George. So, big Beatles fan. I saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show. I love John, Paul, George, and Ringo equally. Every single one of them was, 25% of the Beatles. I feel Ringo was just as important as John or Paul or George. And, George was just as important in the Beatles as John and Paul. Even if he didn't have as many songs on the albums or anything, I loved, the few songs he did in the Beatles. Even from, the very early years when he was, his early songs like Don't Bother Me, If I Needed Someone, and the later songs, Taxman, of course, and I loved Within You, Without You, Something, every George Harrison song in the Beatles I loved. Long, 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 Savoy Truffle. I can't remember them all at the moment, but Old Brown Shoe. That's one of my, probably in my top 10 underrated Beatles songs. For You, Blue, I, Me, Mine. Everything that George did in the Beatles. So when he started his solo career, his first official, I know he had 2 experimental albums, but his third one was kind of known as his real debut album with songs and everything. And even though I was a big fan, I never bought the album because I was young. I didn't have the money. So one of my older brothers would buy All Things Must Pass, and I would kind of hear it. I think I might have bought the 45 of My Sweet Lord and Isn't It a Pity on the B-side, and I loved that. Isn't It a Pity is still one of my all-time favorite songs. But I wouldn't say I ever became a super fan of his solo career. Later on, I would buy, 33 1/3, and I liked it. I would, occasionally buy a George Harrison solo album. But I was more of a Paul and John solo fan. And early Ringo. But that's not to say I didn't like the albums, because I did. So moving ahead, 55 years later, I finally have taken the time to truly listen to All Things Must Pass. Ooh, wrong one here. All Things Must Pass. And this is the 2014 remaster. And then I got the 50th anniversary remix. And I enjoy both for different reasons. I think the remix sounds amazing. But I also like the sort of original remaster of this. They both have their great points, I guess. And I knew some of the songs, My Sweet Lord, of course, Isn't It a Pity, Wah Wah, What is Life, I'd Have You Anytime. Kind of the first few songs on the album. The rest of the songs I didn't know as well. Apple Scruffs I knew, but there were some like Let It Down, Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, Let It Roll, Waiting on You All, All Things Must Pass. I'd heard them, but I just never connected with them for all these years. So I never really gave this a fair listen from start to finish for years and years. Until very recently. yeah, even when this remix came out of Living in the Material World, I was kind of thinking of buying it, but then I was thinking, yeah, I'll like it. I'll play it once or twice, and then it'll just gather dust in my CD collection. But that's not going to be the case. I've also got, I don't want to really go into these too much, but I just got 33 1/3 on CD, which I love, and is self-titled, which I love. And I just ordered, for the first time ever, I'm going to own Dark Horse on CD. So that'll be coming in the next day or two. I have heard it before, but this time, because I love these two albums so much now, I think I'm going to appreciate Dark Horse and all of his other solo albums more. I'm not saying I'm going to love everything he's released, but first off, with All Things Must Pass, this album I've listened to probably about 8 times, maybe 10 times since I got this a few weeks ago, and then I got the remix, which I've listened to 4 or 5 times. So about 10 times in total for both of these. And I can't get enough of them. I've always thought that Paul's Ram or John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band were the best Beatles solo albums. And they're still way up there. But I'm starting to think that All Things Must Pass is the Beatles' greatest Beatles solo album ever. And at one point I was thinking of ranking the songs, and I'd have them on Spotify in a playlist, and I'd listen to one song and say, oh, I love that. I'd move it up. I'd listen to the next song, which was kind of down in the playlist. I think, I love that more than I thought I did. I'd move it, up near the top, and it's like, forget it. I love the song so much. Even, I would say, a lot of people's least favorite, from what I've seen on Rate Your Music, because they have ratings for each of the individual songs. And I'm not going to talk about the Apple Jam at all, which I actually love. I think it's underrated. I think it's a fun listen, but I'm just going to focus on the 2 main albums. But yeah, I think the least favorite song, or one of the least favorite songs on this, I'm not saying the fans don't like it, but it's at the bottom, would be I Dig Love. I think that's a funky, cool song, and even a song like that, which is, it's more lighthearted because there's a lot of deep stuff on this, with the lyrics. So even a song like I Dig Love, which is just, it's needed on this album, it's something a little lighter, and I love that song. I remember the one, when I was getting to finally know this album, and Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, Let It Roll started, and I'm listening to the first minute or so, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a good song, but it's not one of my favorites on the album. And then it gets to that point, the background vocals, oh, Frankie Crisp, kind of spooky, and it's like, oh, I love that. It's like, that goes to the top, or near the top. Just his the musicianship on the album, the guitar work by Eric Clapton, and of course George Harrison, and all the other people involved. Even the original production by Phil Spector, The Wall of Sound, I appreciate a lot more. I have no problem, if I want to listen to this, it's 50-50. It's the remix or the 2014 remaster. I enjoy both of them. And then some of the songs are heavy. It's like, some of this album actually rocks, right? Of course, What Is Life? But Art of Dying, it's amazing. Hear Me, Lord. Another thing I want to say is I know, reading up on reviews, some fans think that Isn't It a Pity, part 2, or version 2, isn't needed. It's like, because the original, the first song, Isn't It a Pity, it's about 7 minutes long. So, okay, that's enough of Isn't It a Pity, but there's a second version. I think the version 2 is different enough from the first song that I'm glad that they included it on the album. I love that little, I don't know if it's a guitar lick or a keyboard lick, but it's kind of haunting. And then man, it only took me 55 years, right? And that's what I love about music. And I don't know how it works, how you go from liking something to really loving something when it comes to music. But I think, maybe in the past, it just wasn't time for me to appreciate these. Maybe I wasn't mature enough, no, that wasn't it. But also I think going through your own life worries and struggles and, pain, whatever, this was just something that I just connected with at last. What George was singing about, it's spiritual. And I got tears from listening to some of these songs. And I want to also just say, get the right album here, Living in the Material World. So I knew All Things Must Pass. I'd bought the album on vinyl years ago and on CD years ago. But like I said, I never really appreciated it like a lot of you do. But I did know some of the songs, at least. This one, except for Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, that's about it. So this was almost, and I'm not saying I never heard it before, but it never registered with me. But this one, now hearing it, and I played it again last night. Last night, the very first time I bought this recently, and I played it, I liked it, but I liked All Things Must Pass a lot more. I didn't totally connect with it. Connection is an important word in music. You either connect with it or you don't. But the second time I played it, I really enjoyed it. Played it a couple more times, and last night, it just hit me. I feel personally that this is a fantastic follow-up to All Things Must Pass. And I think his vocals on both of these albums are the best vocals that George ever did, even including the Beatles. So every song on All Things Must Pass and every single song on Living in the Material World, I connected with and I love. And I'm still getting to know this album. And I do know this album a lot better than I did, but still, these are kind of like fresh to me, and it's exciting. And so I'm excited to get into more George Harrison. I enjoyed this the first time, and I had bought this on vinyl when it came out, and I loved, Blow Away, and Not Guilty, but I never really, once again, appreciated it like I do now. And I'm looking forward to, listening to this more and getting to know the songs more. And this was my favorite, but at the moment, All Things Must Pass and Living in the Material World surpass it, but I need to reconnect with this more. And I'm looking forward to Dark Horse. I'm sure it's not, All Things Must Pass, but I'm just looking forward to hopefully appreciating it more than I did in the past. And that is it. That is sort of my review of early George Harrison. And as I've mentioned, I'm about halfway through watching the Beatles anthology. And even in that, I just have a new appreciation for all of the Beatles. And you can sense with George in the later interviews for the anthology series, he loved the Beatles as much as all the other Beatles did. Sometimes he was a little grumpy and, of course, frustrated with John and Paul because he wasn't getting his songs on the albums like they were. Although you can't really blame John and Paul because they wrote a few good songs. But when he was reminiscing about Beatlemania, he did love some of it. And he loved the humor of the Beatles. And so just a new appreciation of the whole Beatles history, watching the anthology again. I think I'm done. Yeah. What I would say is never give up on something. I'm learning. At the age of almost 68, I finally see what some of you out there, that's the thing when I've done so many Beatles videos on this channel and the other one. And I truly did love it when George was getting a lot of love, even though he was my, I guess, third favorite Beatle. I loved it when people said, oh, he's my favorite. It made me... I was glad that he was getting the recognition that he really does deserve. But I finally recognize that he had the same songwriting level as John Lennon and Paul McCartney, at the time of this and living in the material world. Just a fantastic musician, singer, and songwriter. I love George Harrison. I said it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.